Hello guys, and welcome back to Turbo Thumbs. I'm Rasta Joe, and this is the first episode of Techno Thumbs, our cutscene about taking care of and repairing our gaming gear. Now let me just say that this isn't really a how-to. The purpose of this show is to sate our curiosity about what's inside of our familiar tools of gaming, and to give you advice on how to make yours last. Today we'll be taking a look at this Wiimote. As you can see, it's having trouble staying on. It's also pretty dirty from sweat, but it's nowhere near game over for this piece of gamer equipment. Let's take a closer look. Alright, so here you see I've got the battery cover removed, and we can see inside there. And these are some of the tools that I use for maintaining my gear. Paper towels are the best for wiping off the sweat and gunk that gets on the outside. And for corrosion and cleaning up inside, I've got some Q-tips and this stuff, CLR, calcium lime and rust remover. This stuff is great for removing corrosion. So let's take a look inside the battery compartment here. First we've got the sync button. That's the first place you want to go for any connectivity problems. Now if you look up here, you can see some bluish coloration commonly associated with corrosion from the batteries. If you look on this contact down here, you can see that there's also some corrosion on there. And lastly, we've got in this crevice here some dirt caused by sweat, and you can also see it in this crack pretty well. And here is our tri-wing screwdriver that we'll need. It's probably kind of hard to see the tri-wing there, but the Wiimote does not use normal crosshead screws. You need a tri-wing screwdriver. Just like a Phillips head, but only 3 wings. Alright, so now we've got the Wiimote open. This is the board inside the Wiimote here. So let's look at some of the elements real quick. Here we've got the nunchuck connection port that sticks out the back of the Wiimote. This is that sync button we talked about. Pretty comically tall, if you ask me. And then up here is the infrared camera every Wiimote has that sees the sensor bar of the Wii or the Wii U, which it uses to determine its position in space relative to the sensor bar. And this spot right here is the touch point for the B button on the back of the Wiimote. Let's flip over the board real quick. Here you can see up, down, left, and right touch points for the D-pad. That's the power button right there. A little further down, this is where the A button connects, and I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's a little bit of corrosion on there, so we're going to clean that up. Here we have our minus, home, and plus buttons. Further down, this is where the speaker sits, and then we've got our 1 and 2 buttons, which you can see have some of the battery corrosion on them as well. Flipping back over, this is one of the battery contacts right here. It's probably the most corroded out of all of them that I can see. And this little integrated circuit here got some of the corrosion on it as well. So what I'm going to do to clean those is I'm going to take my CLR and the Q-tips here, and I'm just going to wet the Q-tip, get some CLR on it, and then I'm going to rub that on the corroded points. So make sure you can see. That's a good sign, it's fizzing. So when it fizzes, you can tell it's chemically reacting with the corrosion. Now, when I worked on the Game Boy before, which unfortunately I don't have video of, I actually took the battery contacts out and soaked them in CLR, and that was really fizzy. I don't like to re-dip my Q-tips. I don't know that it actually contaminates the CLR, but I'd rather just have fresh CLR that's going to react better every time I pull a Q-tip out. So I'm just going to gently rub that on, making sure to get all that corrosion. And I don't want to get too much on the board itself. I didn't have trouble when I got some on the board with the Game Boy, but I just don't know how the CLR will chemically react with the board and other things that are on the board, so I don't really want to risk it. But I can see that that corrosion is coming off, and you can see it on the Q-tip now. That coloration is transferred over to the Q-tip, so the Q-tip has absorbed it. So let's put this used one aside. And I'm going to flip over and get those those button touch points as well. I used too much. So I'll absorb it up at the other side. And just gently put a little bit on. You see it fizzing there. Once again, using the dry side of the Q-tip to absorb up any excess corrosion remover. Oh yeah, there's a big spot on this button contact point, but it's coming up nicely. And we're starting to get a lot of CLR on there, so let's dab that up. Definitely broke that stuff up real nice. Let's do a little bit on the A button. Corrosion on it wasn't as bad, so I'm not going to spend as much time on it. Let's just get a dry Q-tip and clean that back up. Still a little bit of corrosion on these buttons. So what I'm going to do is get a little CLR on here, dab it on, and I'm going to let it sit while I flip back to the other side. And I'm going to get a little bit on that integrated circuit. I don't want too much though. Let's get another fresh Q-tip. Alright, I think that integrated circuit cleaned up pretty well. Not sure if you can see it in the video though, but it looks good to my eyes. And let's just do a little bit more on the battery contact. Now what I noticed with the Game Boy and with other Wiimotes that I've cleaned up is that once the battery corrosion's gone, sometimes it leaves like a scar on the battery contact, but I've never had a problem with leaving that there. So I'm just going to treat this one the same way. Just want to get all of the bluish color off. As much as I can. Alright, let's flip back. We'll give these a final wiping. Yeah, you can see up in this corner, oh well, I guess circles don't have corners, but right here there's darkness left on the copper there of the button point. But that's just the scarring I was talking about. So we'll leave that there, and let's see if I can snap this back into place. Up here, there's a couple little points where the board snaps in. I'm just going to gently push that in, snap it back into place. And now we're ready to put the faceplate back on with all the buttons. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute. Alright, we've got everything put back together now. Let's see if it works. Yep, there it goes, searching for the Wii U. So I had a little extra trouble, more than I expected. There's a little bit more corrosion inside the plastic. And even though I knew what I was going into, I still managed to break off this little piece right here. What that piece did was it snaps into the lower plastic piece from the upper piece, and it was on this side. There's one here and one there inside. So it just goes to show, when you're opening up your electronics, make sure you're very careful. You don't want to accidentally break something that was already in good condition before. I did have to go get a couple extra tools, and I even made one of my own here out of a paper clip, but everything's cleaned up and fixed now and working as you saw. So all in all, successful. Well, that's it. Our Wiimote is ready to go back to being the Master Sword, or tennis racket, or Samus's arm cannon. Now here are our tips for giving your Wiimote an extra life. Number 1, wear the wrist strap. I know I sound like an NPC, but we've all seen the videos of people throwing their Wiimotes through their TVs. Don't be that guy, and don't throw your controller in a fit of rage. Just accept the fact that you're a noob and go back to getting pwned. Number 2, take the batteries out of Wiimotes you don't normally use. It can be a pain to have to look for batteries when your friends come over to play, but it's even more painful to have a controller that doesn't work because it's full of corrosion. Number 3, clean up your Wiimotes. If you pick it up and you feel a layer of caked on gunk, it's time for a cleanup. Number 4, keep that CLR handy, because unless you go through batteries faster than Pac-Man goes through pellets, you're gonna have to deal with some corrosion eventually. Well, that's it for this episode of Techno Thumbs. Remember to like and subscribe and leave us a comment down below. Tell us what you want to see us do next. I'm Rasta Joe, and thank you for checking out Turbo Thumbs.